A dog end up stuck 500 feet down in a cave for as long as 2 months. That's what people are asking about a pooch named Abby who made it home after a dramatic rescue.
These guys were exploring a cave with their kids 500 feet below ground when someone heard a dog.
They report back, Dad, there's a dog here. We did not believe them.
But there she was, skinny, listless, but alive. Abby, a poodle mix, had been missing for 8 long weeks. She was trapped in pitch darkness.
She was not looking real healthy. We thought her back might be broken or something. This is not in good shape.
Gerry Keene and his friend Rick Haley were determined to carry her up to safety.
When you initially go into the cave, you're going in about a 2 by 2 hole. So there's this little teeny crawl hole that goes for maybe 10 feet.
Look how narrow the passages become. They put Abby in a bag to carry her up, all 500 feet.
Basically, I would go first. Rick would hand the pup up to me. I would then put her on a ledge or something, make sure she doesn't fall. Rick would then climb up, take over. I'd climb up further, and we're just handing over her. I think she totally understood that we were helping her.
Abby's owners say she ran off back in June and may have been swept into the cave by floodwaters. They had just about given up hope they would ever see her again.
As days went on, we figured, well, probably with her age, she probably, didn't know if she just died somewhere or got hit by a vehicle.
I guess that was the worst fear, that she would be suffering.
And here's Abby today, bouncing back.
She was weak and stumbling, and I think a little bit blinded just from being in the darkness so long. It was just bones and skin.
Now they are thankful that some brave souls rescued their Abby just in time.
If it would have been too much longer, you don't know how much more time she could have spent in there.
Abby's family says her spirits are improving, so she's clearly on the road to recovery.
This is Gerry Keene. He has an amazing story to tell. I found out about you through my father, Gerry, because he gets, I believe it was AARP magazine. They did a big synopsis on you. It was called Three Men and a Dog. We're going to talk about this story because Gerry was one of the people that did rescue this beautiful young dog. We'll say 14 years old young, because we try to be nice and anyway, I'm not going to say politically correct because I'm definitely not politically correct, but we try to be nice to our people on the show as we do with our animals. But Gerry really helped this beautiful dog get back to its owner and live its life instead of dying in darkness, which would be extremely sad. Gerry, thanks so much for coming on and really telling this amazing story about you and two other heroic men did to help this beautiful dog.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's kick this around. You are a financial advisor and living in Missouri. Is it Missouri or Missouri? I always get confused.
Missouri is how I say it.
All right, because I know some people say Missouri, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I've heard it both ways.
All right, well, we'll continue on. So, just bring us back to those months ago when you were going into the cave with, your two other family friends and family members, from what I understand. You can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these issues, because I've heard many different stories of how this story came about. I've heard the dog was 500 feet, then I've heard the dog was 200 feet. So there's very different genres of how this story happened, but we're going to get to the bottom of this from you, the source, as far as that goes. So, Gerry, again, take us back to this day of going into the cave and how it started.
But Perryville, which is the community that I live near, is home to about 10% of the caves in the state of Missouri, including the 4 of the 5 longest caves. This particular rescue happened in the second longest cave in the state of Missouri, the Burrell-Moore Cave System. It's about 26 miles or so. Anyway, irrelevant. The caving as a hobby, you'll hear terms. You hear caving, and then you hear spelunking. Spelunking is the original term that cavers used to be called by. And then as the hobby became more organized, they rebranded into what's called caving. And now you have what's called organized caving, which is what I'm a part of. through what are called grottos. We do what's called project caving, where you're exploring, you're mapping caves, and that sort of thing. So this particular day was a project caving event day at the Burrow-Moore system. And there were roughly 40 people or so involved in that particular project. They were actually trying to take a cave diver down to explore one of the sumps and see if they could connect it to another cave. Just to kind of give you a background about this, is a lot more than simply we happen to be there. Concurrently to this project, and interrupt me as you see fit, feel free, not a problem. And we're on a delay, you said, so I need to slow down for you to interrupt or put more pauses?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. So this was a project cave day. Concurrently with that project caving, we as a grotto, a caving organization in Perryville, had an event coming up the next month in September, where we're bringing cavers from multiple states to the city. And one of the features is offering organized trips for them to see the various caves. So what we were doing is, one of those trips was a what's called a door-to-door trip from the cave system that the 40 people were in into one of its adjacent caves, going in one entrance, out a different entrance. Does that make any sense? And I know this seems a little superfluous, but it helps to understand the background of why we were there, who was there, et cetera, because that helps put this in perspective. So anyway, I was helping train a couple of the guides for the trip in September, refreshing them with the route that we would be taking. And on that particular group, there were about 10 of us on that group, including about 4 different children, the kids of the guides. And so what makes this particular trip fun, and the reason that we're doing it, is the entrance that we go into to start the door-to-door trip. And the entrance starts with what's called a belly crawl, which is essentially where you're crawling on your belly. It's basically this circular tube that's maybe 2 foot wide by 2 foot high. You crawl through that for maybe 20 feet. You then get into a room where you can stand up briefly. Then you go into another crawl, which is actually going down. And then from there, you get into another room where you start a complex means of crawling. Well, not crawling, climbing down further into the cave. And so from a caver standpoint, you got to understand, we're totally insane because we explore caves. Normal people don't do this. Right? Just the facts. So from a caving standpoint, it's a lot of fun because it's nice and complex and it's challenging. In terms of caving, we don't necessarily measure stuff by feet, which is why you heard all the different distances in, et cetera. We generally will measure stuff by time, because it takes a lot longer to go anywhere in a cave than it does otherwise. So it takes probably 15, 20 minutes to get through all this entertainment of this entrance down to what's called this mainstream passage. And then once you finally get down there, then the mainstream passage is featured by it's a stream, so you're walking in the water. You can walk, is not an issue with that. So we get through all this entertainment with this group of 10 or so, and of course, when you're caving with kids, they're out front. Especially caver kids, they know how much fun this can be, so they're in the front. And I'm actually in the back, letting the guides learn the trip. And that's kind of one of the ways I do it. I let them learn it. If they need something, they can ask for it. So all of a sudden, one of the kids cries out to her dad, "Hey, Dad, there's a dog in the cave." And that gets back to me. And I'm like, "What? There's no dog in the cave." You find a lot of things in a cave. A dog is not one of the things you find in a cave. We've never come across a dog in a cave. So I get up there to where the kids are, and sure enough, there's Abby's her name, the dog's name. She is just basically laying there. She was out of the mainstream passage. She's laying in the mud. And you have to picture this is about 10 or 12 of us, all with headlights. So you've got a light on your helmet. And so she's in the cave environment is pitch black. So she's in a pitch black environment. All of a sudden, human beings with lights come up on her, and all she can do is lift her head. We call to her, she won't move. She just looks at us. So then you're in a situation of, how do we handle this? Because we've got 4 or 5 kids, we've got a group of 10. You don't know if this dog is a rabid. You don't know if this is diseased, if this is a good dog, a bad. You have no idea. So we made the decision, based on cave rescue principles, to send somebody back up to the surface to start organizing cave rescue, while the rest of the group, in this case, continued on because they had kids and we didn't want to put the kids in any danger or anything along those lines. So myself and one of the other guides that's learning the trip, he had snapped a picture of Abby on his phone. So he came with me. We went back out of the cave, and understand this is another 20 minutes. Now, getting in here was all climbing down. Now we have to climb up that same entertainment. So it takes a good solid 20 minutes or so to climb back out here. And it's hysterical. We get up to the surface, and understand there's 40 plus people at this location. There's nobody on the surface. Nobody. It's a ghost town because everybody's underground. It's just so he transfers the picture from his phone to my phone, which was in my car, and then his kids are back down to the cave, so he goes back down to the cave naturally to take care of his kids.
Yeah.
So now I'm on the surface alone. So, and most of the cavers are in this cave. So then I start trying to figure out who's not in the cave, making phone calls to cavers I know, and I was able to reach a dear friend of mine who happens to be an assistant fire chief, and so he's willing to respond. But once again, we're in the country, so it takes him, by the time he can get everything ready and get there, it's at least 30 minutes plus before he's going to be able to arrive. So in the meantime, I decided to walk down to the county road and knock on some doors with this picture to see if we can find anybody who owns this dog. The first house, they didn't know the dog. The second house, luckily that gentleman, while he didn't know the dog, he knew his neighbors. So he was willing to start making phone calls to see if anybody was missing a dog. So that guy, if you really want to talk about the unsung hero of the whole thing, that guy's the unsung hero. well, it really is.
Right.
So then I was able to go back up. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll let you finish, because I think this is good that you're just going straight through, and then we can ask questions after you're finished.
I can do it either way.
No, I like this. You're giving all the details, so I like this. This is good.
Okay, good enough. I could go god awful details. I'll spare you.
Oh, jeez.
But so I get back up to the cave site. My friend Rob arrives, the fire chief. So now him and I are figuring out, okay, once again, there's still nobody up on the site because everybody's in the cave. And we're figuring out, all right, how do we get a dog out of a cave? I don't know about you, but that's not something we've ever done before. So we're reviewing the cave rescue equipment, which is all designed for humans, trying to figure out, well, do we use this? Do we use that? Can we actually fit it into this entrance? And luckily around that time, an outstanding, what I like to call legacy cavers, a guy named Rick Haley, who's running surface support, emerges from the cave. And so he's running surface support. He was down just doing some maintenance in the cave. So he comes out of the cave, and it's great because he walks out of the cave and goes, "Oh, great, Rick, you're here. You're drafted. We have to go rescue a dog." And to his credit, it's like, okay, no problem. So, hey, Rick's an amazing man, an amazing caver. He actually, as an aside, I think he teaches the blind. I think is what he does for a living in the St. Louis area. Amazing man. So to his credit, we explain what's going on, And he has the idea of, well, hey, I've got this duffel bag in my car. This may work. And he looks at the picture and says, yeah, this might be the right size. So he grabs this duffel bag out of his car, grabs a blanket, and we say, okay, well, let's go see if it works. So we descend back into the cave to this entrance. At where the cave starts getting tight, we decide, hey, we probably need somebody on the surface of the cave. So Rob, the fire chief, decides to stay as surface support while Rick and I go back into the cave to see what we can do for the dog. So now you understand we're going to go back down another 15, 20 minutes down this entertainment again. So if you're counting them, this is 3 times I've done that entrance. It's designed to do once. This is the 3rd time I've done it. Oh, getting tired at this point.
It's a hell of a workout, I'll tell you that.
Oh, it's a workout. You have no idea. And if you can't tell, the hair is gray. So for an old guy, it's a double workout. Now, Rick's an old guy too. So you got these 2 old guys going to do this. So we get back down there and we get down to where Abby is. And luckily, one of the guys with the other party had thought, hey, let's leave a flashlight here just so the dog has some light. And the flashlight revived her. It's amazing because we get down there, we called her, she gets up, she sees, first time she wouldn't get up. There's 12 people, lights. All she would do is raise her head. This time she sees the flashlight, she sees us. She gets up. She actually comes to us. Rick does an assessment of her, determines she's not injured. She can walk. So like, oh, cool. Maybe she'll go the direction we wanted her to go. And she was having no part of that. And we found out later why she was having no part of that. So we're trying to take her the closest way to get out. And she's having, no. I came in a different way. We need to go this other way. It's like, yeah, that wasn't working. So we eventually, we tried for a while. I'm pushing, Rick's coding along, and it's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. So we eventually put the duffel bag down, put the blanket in there for her, and she understands immediately what it is. She gets on that thing. Oh, a blanket. This is great. Lays down on the blanket. And so we're able to just zip the duffel bag up. Now, the piece I haven't talked about yet is, do you know how wonderful a dog smells after it's been in a cave for a week or 2 or however long she's been in this cave? She was fragrant.
Yeah.
And to zip her up, you're right up there next to her. It's like, whoa, baby, this smells great. So we get her zipped up, and then she's very fragile. I mean, it's extremely obvious. And caves are not this nice, beautiful, dry environment by anything. It's a wet environment. The terrain, while we could walk, is not the smoothest terrain in the world. So basically, Rick and I, he's got one handle, I've got the other handle, and we're just trying to carefully get her out of here, keep her dry. So we're able to get her through all the nice walking parts. Then we come up with the entertainment, the crawls and the climbs and all that stuff. Once again, now 4th time going up this. So basically what we do is we tag team her. I climb up there. He hands her up to me. I put her up on a ledge. Rick will climb up, hold her. Then I'll climb up further, and he hands her to me. And then we'll get to these crawls. Well, how do you belly crawl through a 2-foot space with a dog? Well, you go through it, turn around, come back into it. He pushes the dog halfway up. I pull her out. So, yeah, that about sums it up. So, needless to say, this didn't just take the 15, 20 minutes it takes a caver to do. It probably took us a good solid 40 minutes to get her out this entrance. By the time we finally emerge from all this stuff, we get through the last of the constrictions, and Rob's waiting for us. So we handed her off to Rob because we're pretty tired.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. So Rob carries her out, with our help. We get up to the surface, and there's your anticlimactic. Nobody's there. Yeah, it's like, once again, all 40 people are in the cave. Nobody's there. So it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? Before I had gone in again, I had touched base with the Perryville EMS people. We work very closely with the fire department. And so I called them, let them know what's going on. They had a vet on call in case we needed it. And then as we were looking around, the project has this big bulletin board, one of the dry erase boards from your kids when you're in school. Well, I don't know if you're old enough to add. You may have had computers in school. Did you have computers? Did you have a dry erase?
We had dry erases, and
Did you have a chalkboard in school, or did you
we
have
did have
computers?
a chalk, but I'm 33. I'm not that young, but I appreciate those compliments. We'll roll with that.
See, well, the dry erase board, they had this big dry erase board hung up, and all the different teams were in there. So I had written down what we were doing on there. And then down at the bottom, the owner had come by and written his name down as well. Because he came by, there's nobody there. It's like, where is everybody? So naturally, he left his phone number, went home again, because what else is he going to do? So we found his phone number and his name because he wrote it for us. So then I let Perryville know, called him. He showed up, and then we were able to reunite him with Abby. What's hysterical during this waiting period is, so we get Abby out of the cave, and we give her some water, and then Rob, the fire chief, takes out a beef stick, food, and he feeds her this beef stick, but he didn't get the plastic off soon enough, and the dog almost ate his hand. She was so hungry. It was really funny. But not Rob, the owner, Jeff, eventually showed up and was able to, take custody of Abby and tell us about her ordeal, how she had run away from home like a month before that. And just, it was fascinating, the story and the ordeal she had been through from his standpoint as well.
I just want to get the listener and the viewer involved in this. And if you could just describe this more about how far the owner's home was to where the caves you were, inside of, Gerry.
Well, it's the country, so you have road miles and then you have dog miles, field miles. From where the cave is, his house is probably a mile or so down the county road, and then you turn left in another county road. But from a dog standpoint, you can see it from the cave. So from a dog standpoint, it's just running across the field. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I was just trying to grasp that because, we've done reports as far as dogs on this show of, up in mountains in California, where, there's been people that have lost dogs and they found them, months later and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to grasp a little bit as far as the time frame, which we do know was about 2 months, is from reports. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously we just went through this earlier on that some of the reports weren't the greatest source of reporting. We'll just say that. But we also, were told that, I guess I wanted to tell the audience rather about how far it was between the house and the cave. So that was great. So
probably, yeah, probably across the field, maybe half mile or more. But, for a dog, that's not a big deal.
Right.
It's probably chasing a rabbit or something. It's not a big deal.
So we wanted to report on this story, Gerry, because this is the story, I believe, of America, that people are coming together. You saw that dog in there. You could have, as you said, you went up and down like 4 or 5 times. You were busting your behind, going back and forth, trying to save this dog. We love dogs as far as people on this show. That's why we do a lot of reporting as far as dog stories, besides the many other reports we do on here. But it is the story of America, people helping each other, coming together and finding a solution. We don't do that anymore in this country for the most part. That's another story for another day, unfortunately. But regardless of that, that's what I think. That's what I think this story is about. And I don't know if you agree with that, but you can give me your feedback on that statement too.
It's a great assessment there. I don't have an issue with that. I'm a veteran. It's what you do. You take care of your country, you take care of your community. And what were their other options? Just leave her there?
Gerry, as far as this story, I told you at the beginning of this interview, I thought this was a story of America, community coming together, saving a life in general. What do you hope that people learn from this story today as they listen or watch this on whatever platform they're hearing this on.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because as you observe, this story went viral, which was a whole entertaining process to be part of. But as this was going viral, Rick and I were talking, why are we doing this? And we both came to the same conclusion that at the time, people needed something to make them feel good about being Americans, about themselves. And this story provided it. So yeah, absolutely. That's why we did it, was just to spread a story, what they call a feel-good story. People make people recognize there's still good in this country.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And also thank you for saving this dog's life. It is a great story. It does show that, community can come together for a great cause. And, it does give America, as you were trying to do, it does give America that story that, how Americans should act to each other. It's not about politics. It's not about COVID-19. It's not about any of this gobbledygook nonsense. It's about coming together to help one another. And I'll even extend more on this, and then we'll end this interview here. I remember I was very young at the time, September 11, 2001, being in 6th grade, watching the towers being hit, whether you were a Bush person, Al Gore, Bill Clinton, whoever the hell you liked, you said, this is America. We need to stand up, raise the flag, stand up for the flag, and everybody did that. Since then, stuff has deteriorated because of many different events, and that's a whole another interview that could go on for hours on end. But regardless of that, we came together, and that's what I appreciate you and the rest of the people in that community for coming together as Americans and saving this dog's life. Who, we don't know the dog, but we all do have dogs. For the most people that are listening do have dogs. That's why we've got recommended to this story. So we love our dogs with all of our hearts and souls, and we have to bring that towards not just dogs, but to people in general, and act kind and caring towards our fellow Americans, so we can make this country really better than it is now. We do have the obligation to do that as Americans. But go ahead, Gerry. I know you wanted to interject something.
Well, you had talked about 9/11 and the response to that. This story had the same effect. This story went worldwide. This was not just an American story. We did interviews for Canada, for Australia, for Japan. There were stories in Germany. That people are people. We're all God's people. We all have the same, desires, and everybody rallied around a story where God's creation was in danger, and we did something about it.
Well, again, God bless you, and God bless Rick and everybody else that helped in this effort to save this beautiful creature of God. And with that, I'll end the interview there, Gerry. I'm very happy we finally got to get this done, and I hope to talk to you again for some good reason down the road again.